Do you hear it? Do you hear glory? It's hard. In truth, we've been surrounded by an almost deafening and confusing cacophony of other sounds, haven't we? Of commercials cajoling us to buy things nobody really needs, sometimes for people we don't even like that much. Of cash registers and credit card readers cheerfully chirping away as they confirm our purchases and capture our emails for future marketing. Of car horns honking at us and crowds pushing us like cattle on a death march in the malls. Not to mention those insipid yet insistent seasonal songs such as the Chipmunks and Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer. We've all heard it so much that some may indeed have Santa claustrophobia tonight. Even in the church. Word came back from our daughter today that in their quiet English parish in Huddersfield, that the children's play had a spectacular ending. A hay fight broke out in the front, spearheaded by our two grandchildren. After which Tally shouted during Steve's closing prayer, "Danger in the manger." Likewise, a lot of folks already have gone a long way in these holidays, some with miles to go before they sleep. Our son and Katie and his family went to Colorado to ski, and when they came home yesterday, they didn't. A snowstorm came. They're hopefully home by today. According to AAA, Americans have hit the roads and the rails and the skies in a record number, roughly 107.3 million of us going at least 50 miles or more from our homes. 97.3 million people on the freeways, all of them in front of you, yes? And even Santa Claus will be traveling some 312 million miles tonight, if you do the math, including the 3,000 miles from the North Pole to Sugar Land. He will have to speed along at 1,800 miles a second. That's assuming that he hasn't, as one satire recently suggested, converted to Calvinism and moved everyone on earth over to the naughty list. All have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. All in all, it's been a noisy Noel. A lot of people may already be worn out from going a long way this holiday. But however you got here, whatever it took, whether you knew it or not, I'm here to tell you that tonight you have stepped into a thin place. A spot, a moment where the walls between heaven and earth, the spiritual and the physical, are at their weakest. This is not a metaphor that appears in the scriptures. It was the Celtic Christians who first used to say, no doubt in an Irish brogue, that heaven and earth are only 3 feet apart, but in thin places the distance is even shorter. Marcel Eliade, the noted religion scholar, once likewise observed that some parts of space are qualitatively different from others. An Apache proverb took the idea a step further, suggesting that wisdom sits in places, and C.S. Lewis, though never using the term explicitly, embodied it in his children's stories, often depicting those threshold spaces between one dimension and another, a wardrobe in an old house somewhere. And just so, Christmas Eve is surely one of those places. These words from St. John's Gospel remind us that on this night the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, quite literally in the Greek language, eskenosin hemen, God came down and pitched his tent, his skene, among us. The infinite became an infant. Our God contracted to a span, incomprehensibly made man. So Charles Wesley, the poet laureate of Methodism, put it. At Christmas, the distance that had existed for so long between heaven and earth was diminished and even defeated, we might say. Because you see, St. John also told us that the light shines in the darkness, but the darkness has not understood it. There's a double meaning to that last verb. It means not only has the darkness not been able to comprehend or understand the light, but it cannot apprehend or overcome it either. That is to say, the darkness can't take it all in and it can't tear it all down. Which means that no matter how challenging the circumstances of our lives may be at times, indeed, how bleak the midwinters of our moments may seem, they're not bleak enough to blot out the light of Christ tonight. For the glory is here. Do you see it? Can you hear that ancient song in the night? The other side gets it, I suspect. That's why they have fought it so much, decrying Christmas. It's too Eurocentric. Pushing for a culture in which spiritual concerns have been largely excised. For the King Herods of this world know in their souls, as Thomas Long put it, what we perhaps have passed over too quickly. God's presence in this world means finally the end of their own power. But it can also mean the end of our fears as well. Because we all have fears, don't we? I think of a little boy who was afraid of dark nights and storms. One night during a thunderstorm, his mother asked him to go out on the back porch and bring her the broom. He started to do so, but when he tried to turn on the light of the back porch, it was burnt out. So he ran back and he told his mother, and she said, "You don't have to be afraid. God is everywhere. God is right there with you. He won't let anything happen to you." The boy looked at his mom and he said, "Are you sure?" She said, "Yes." So he mustered up his courage. He went back to the porch. He was about to step out on it when all of a sudden a huge lightning bolt flashed and a huge clap of thunder rumbled. The boy froze, and then he simply hollered, "God, if you're really out there, hand me the broom." It's kind of where some of us are tonight. God is not only out there, He's right here. He's come to meet us in this thin place between the sacred and the mundane. For we have seen His glory, the glory of the one and only Son who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. That's why you're here, my sisters and brothers, even if you didn't know it. You've come because something inside of you has remembered that heaven once came to earth, that the best gift has already been given, that God was born into our midst. And in a world that is filled with loneliness and despair, seemingly run by the Herods among us, we all need to hear that we're not alone, but that there's hope, there is forgiveness, there is grace, and heaven is as close to us as we want it to be. Because tonight, we're all in a thin place. The walls that have separated us from a Savior have been shattered. We've not come here to verify or validate anything. We're here simply to kneel. Not too long after his beloved wife died in a fire, the oldest son of the poet Henry Wadsworth Longfellow joined the Union Army as a soldier without his father's blessing or even his father's knowledge. He was severely wounded in the Civil War, leading Longfellow to write a poem for Christmas Day in 1863. You can still hear the words of that poem as they're sung from time to time. Casting Crowns has a wonderful version of it. Listen to them again. I heard the bells on Christmas Day, their old familiar carols play, and wild and sweet the words repeat, of peace on earth, goodwill to men. And thought how, as the day had come, the belfries of all Christendom had rolled along the unbroken song of peace on earth, goodwill to men. And in despair, I bowed my head. There is no peace on earth, I said, for hate is strong and mocks the song of peace on earth, goodwill to men. And it seems that way tonight, doesn't it? So many parts of this world yet remain in turmoil. So many still live in poverty and in oppressive lands. There's still not power in parts of Puerto Rico. Closer to home, many of our neighbors, some of you, are still in temporary housing following the after effects of Harvey. North Korea is threatening. Terrorists are plotting. Partisan bickering in all of our capitals prevails, and evil seems to have a toehold on much of the world. But listen to how Longfellow ended his poem. Then pealed the bells more loud and deep. God is not dead, nor doth he sleep. The wrong shall fail, the right prevail, with peace on earth, goodwill to men. That's the song in the night this Christmas Eve, my friends. This luminality, this threshold place between heaven and earth when God came down to meet us. And if we can remember that, well, it will change us. And we in turn, we will change the world all around us. Listen once more to what the Apostle John told us. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory. We beheld his glory. Listen. Listen. Can you hear it? Glory.